Good morning and welcome to Walk Before You Run. Today, I want to talk about the boomerang effect. The boomerang effect. And I want to take a look at Judges 9, but I want to reference Judges 7 and 8 as well as 9. Now, this all starts with Gideon, if you recall, um, fought against the Midianites, and God told him to reduce the size of his army. Good morning, babe. Reduce the size of his army from thousands to 300. Well, when I studied Gideon and studied the people, uh, I noticed that they had, good morning, my friend. I noticed that they had an issue with Gideon in his battle with the Midianites. So in chapter 7 of Judges, this is where God tells uh, Gideon to reduce the size of his army, and Gideon is unsure, and so he asks him to give him some signs. God gives him some signs that that's exactly what he wants them to do, and so they go off to fight. And when they fight in this unorthodox way. God tells them to take some lamps and some pitchers and some trumpets and use that instead of the swords that they had, because they were going to end up using the sword of God. And so they win this victory. And in chapter 8, Gideon captures the Midianites, and he he and the men of Ephraim, they go after the kings of the Midianites, and they capture Zebah and Zalmunna. And then when he gets back to Ephraim, the people are upset because they said that he did not that he left them out of the battle, of the fight against the Midianites. But that was a God decision. That was not Gideon's decision. And so they were mad at God through Gideon, because Gideon did exactly what God told him to do. And so they are mad. The Israelites helped the men from Naphtali, Asher, and all of Manasseh. Now, Ephraim is a part of Manasseh, but they're upset. So these Israelites, they help. Then Gideon urges Ephraim, the men of Ephraim, to come down against the Midianites to help capture the fords of Jordan. And they kill um, the commanders. Their names are Oreb, which means raven, and Zeb, which means wolf. And they killed them and they took their spoils. Then they were not so mad because they felt included. But you can't get mad at somebody if they're doing what God tells them to do. Because to me, it reminds me of what my sister always says: misguided anger. They were really mad at God because that's what God told Gideon to do, to just use these few men. So the rest of the men were mad, but their anger was really towards God, even though they tried to pretend like it was towards Gideon. And so this brings us to chapter 9. At the end of chapter 8, Gideon is getting older, and then I want to read just the last part of chapter 8, just to kind of give you an idea of where we're going from when we get to chapter 9. So if you'll turn to Judges 8, and let's take a look at verses 20 let's go to 24. It says, and Gideon said unto them, I would desire a request of you, that ye would give me every man the earrings of his prey. For they had golden earrings, because they were Ishmaelites. And they answered, we will willingly give them. And they spread a garment, and did cast therein every man the earrings of his prey. And the weight of the golden earrings that he requested was 1,700 shekels, 1,700 shekels of gold, besides ornaments and collars and purple raiment that was on the kings of the Midianites, and beside the chains that were about their camels' necks. Now they were complaining, but they enjoyed the spoils of the war. So they really didn't have anything to complain about. Then let's go on down to verse 27. It says, and Gideon made an ephod thereof, and put it in his city, even in Ophrah. And all Israel went thither a whoring after it, which things became a snare unto Gideon and to his house. Now, they win this battle because of God. Then Gideon, so this kind of makes me a little upset with Gideon. Then Gideon tells them, give me a little bit of everything you got. And I think when he told them to just give me of the earrings, think about that, made them think about just how much they gained because of the victory. But they were still upset, mad. Okay. And so thus 28 says, thus was Midian subdued before the children of Israel, so that they lifted up their heads no more. And the country was in quietness for 40 years in the days of Gideon. 29. And Jerubbaal, the son of Joash, now this is Gideon, went and dwelt in his own house. And Gideon had 70 sons of his body begotten, for he had many wives. And his concubine that was in Shechem, she also bare him a son whose name was called Abimelech. Now, Abimelech is going to be the subject of what we'll talk about today, but I had to kind of give you some background. So he is the son of a concubine, not of a wife, but of this woman, a mistress, sort of. And Gideon, the son of Joash, died in a good old age and was buried in the sepulchre of Joash, his father, in Ophrah of the Abiezrites. 33. And it came to pass, as soon as Gideon was dead, that the children of Israel turned again and went a whoring after Balaam, and made Baal Berith their God. And the children of Israel remembered not the Lord their God, who had delivered them out of the hands of all their enemies on every side. Neither showed they kindness to the house of Jerubbaal, namely Gideon, according to all the goodness which he had showed unto Israel. Now remember, he delivered them out of the hands of their enemy, through God. Or God did it through Gideon. Now they make Abimelech the king. Now this is different, because Abimelech is the son of a woman that was not considered his wife, but she was from Shechem, and that's where they are. So let's take a look. Chapter 9. Abimelech, the son of Jerubbaal, went to Shechem unto his mother's brethren, and communed with them, and with all the families of the house of his mother's father, saying, speak, I pray you, in the ears of all the men of Shechem, whether it is better for you either that all of the sons of Jerubbaal, which are 70 persons, reign over you, or that one reign over you. Remember also that I am your bone and your flesh. So he's saying, okay, so do you want these legitimate heirs of Gideon to rule over you? Is 70 of them, or do you want me? Because see, I'm your brother. And so sure enough, they're going to side with him. And so now I want to skip all the way down to, and you can read that when you're on your own. I want you to skip all the way down to verse 6. It says, and all the men of Shechem gathered together, and all the house of Milo, and went and made Abimelech king by the plain of the pillar that was in Shechem. Now they said that they chose him, and so what they do, I'm sorry, go back up to 5. It says, and he went unto his father's house at Ophrah and slew his brethren, the sons of Jerubbaal, being 80 persons upon one stone. Notwithstanding, yet Jotham, the youngest son of Jerubbaal, was left, for he did hide himself. So he kills all his brothers, takes it. Now he takes the kingdom. And just think about it. I said the boomerang effect. Sometimes we do stuff because we get greedy, we get in our own head, we get the big head. And so we do things that are not according to God. And it comes back to bite us in the hiney. And so he does this, kills his brothers, because he wants to be king. He wants what is not rightfully his. And I kind of blame, the reason why I say I kind of blame Gideon is because he takes this goal, makes this effort, puts it in the city, and then the people start going after other gods. He should have stood firm in honoring God because God had just given him victory over his enemies on all sides. And sometimes we do that. We praise God right after the victory, and before you know it, we go right on back to our old ways, or we start looking at the ways of others and start hanging around with people that don't mean us any good, or start looking at things or get pulled away from God. We get stuck in the TV, we get stuck on Instagram and Facebook and Snapchat and whatever else is out there, TikTok. We get stuck on all of these things and allow them, not to saying that they're bad, but we allow them to pull our attention away from God. We we get so stuck in stuff that we don't consider God. But if you consider what a God is, what an idol God is, it's anything that pulls your attention, your love, your efforts away from God. Those are your idols. So all those things, no matter how harmful they look, they are what the world is doing. And so when we allow the world to take our attention off God, and then we start going away from where we need to be. So that's what they did. That's the one thing that I have to say about Gideon that he should not have done. And so their attention goes away from God. And so now Abimelech, he wants to do his thing. And so the people start doing some of everything. They start getting caught up in all the vices that are prevalent in that time, just like we get caught up in all the devices that are prevalent in our time. And it takes away our time from what it needs to be invested in. Verse 7 says, and when they told it to Jotham, he went and stood in the top of Mount Gerizim and lifted up his voice and cried and said unto them, hearken unto me, ye men of Shechem, that God may hearken unto you. He said, listen to me so that God can listen to you. The trees went forth on a time to anoint a king over them. I love this analogy that he's using, and this is where I wanted to get to. And they said unto the olive tree, reign thou over us. But the olive tree said unto them, should I leave my fatness, wherewith by me they honor God and man, and go to be promoted over the trees? So it's saying, should I leave what God has anointed me to do, to go do something because that's what y'all want? Mm-mm. And I love the fact that they started with the olive tree, because from the olive comes the anointing oil that was used for setting somebody apart for God's service, for healing, the healing of the body. And so they start with that. Then it says, the tree said to the fig tree, come thou and reign over us. But the fig tree says unto them, should I forsake my sweetness and my good fruit and go to be promoted over the trees? So it's saying, man says, come be over me. Hey, man, come be over me, when God should have been the king. God should be over you. But you're so busy letting men get in your ear, women get in your ear, that you're not listening to God. But even the fig tree had more sense than we have. Even the olive tree has more sense than we have. Look at this. Verse 12. Then said the trees unto the vine, come thou and reign over us. And the vine said unto them, should I leave my wine, which cheereth God and man, to go be promoted over the trees? Notice that each one of these talked about their duty to both God and to man. So we have a service to God and we have a service to man. And when we're in the right position, doing the right thing, God is happy. We find favor with God and favor with man. Verse 15, 14 says, then said all the trees unto the bramble, come thou and reign over us. Now they are going from the most important and they're going down the chain. Now they're getting down to something that's lower than a tree. Listen to this. If in truth ye anoint me king over you, then come and put your trust in my shadow. If not, let fire come out of the bramble and devour the cedar of Lebanon. Now, bramble is something that's down on the ground, and the cedars are taller than skyscrapers. And do you see the point that's being made? You're gonna come from God has lifted you up so high, and you're gonna come and get underneath me, way down here on the ground, when I'm not even as tall as your stump. 16 says, now therefore, if ye have done truly and sincerely, in that ye have made Abimelech king, and if ye have dealt with Jerubbaal and his house, and have done unto him accordingly to the deserving of his hand. Now it's saying, now think back over all that Gideon has done for you. Are you honoring him and what he has done for you by the actions that you have displayed, listening to Abimelech? Listen to what this says. 17 says, for my father fought for you and adventured his life far and delivered you out of the hands of Midian. And ye are rising up against my father's house this day, and have slain his sons 70 persons upon one stone, and have made Abimelech the son of his maidservant king over the men of Shechem, because he is your brother. If ye then have dealt truly and sincerely with Jerubbaal and with his house this day, then rejoice ye in Abimelech, and let him also rejoice in you. But if not, let fire come out from Abimelech and devour the men of Shechem and the house of Milo, and let fire come out from the men of Shechem and from the house of Milo, and devour Abimelech. And Jotham ran away and fled and went to Beer and dwelt there for fear of Abimelech and his brethren. So I read that because I wanted to set you up for what's going to take place with Abimelech. Now, here's a twist on it today. I'm not reading the part that shows you the boomerang effect. I want you to read it. So you'll need to read verses 22 all the way to verse 57, because then you get a chance to see that what Abimelech meant for good turned out to be evil for him. So sometimes when you throw the boomerang trying to hit somebody else, it's gonna whoop, 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 right on back to you and get you. And so I am not going to tell you what happens. We are not going to read it together. I want you to read it for yourself. Okay? But the whole point of this lesson is just to keep our mind on the fact that when we are doing what we're supposed to do, honoring God like we're supposed to do, and not trying to get somebody back, trying to take vengeance into our own hands and try to lift our own selves up. When we don't do that, God will take care of us. But anytime we dig a ditch, anytime we set a trap, anytime we throw a stone, anytime we do some dirt, all of those things are going to boomerang themselves right on back to us. So, what am I saying to us? Live truthfully, live holy, live honorably unto God, and humbly. And you do that. And if there's any lifting to be done, God will lift you. God will elevate you. You don't have to do any trying to tricks, connive, scheme, come up with some kind of wiles of saying you don't have to do any of that. God will do the elevate. You just humble yourself before the Almighty, and He will elevate you. But if you elevate yourself, you're going to find yourself down like Abimelech. I love you. Take care of yourselves. Walk through the rest of this word of God is good, I promise you. And remember that you are blessed to be a blessing. I'll see you next time.